Have you ever wondered why some people only need to step into a room for every gaze to be drawn to them, while others can talk for hours and no one truly listens? The secret is not in the words. The secret is in the energy. Today, you are about to discover the silent power of deep communication and emotional presence. A power that can change the way you connect with people. And if you truly understand it, you will never communicate the old way again. You can walk through half your life without ever knowing that an invisible current is quietly determining every opportunity, every relationship, and every turning point in your journey. A force not of money, luck, beauty, or intelligence. Something deeper, quieter, stronger. It hides in every sentence you speak, every look you give, every breath you bring into a room. That is how you communicate, not with words but with energy. There are people who do not need to speak, and their presence alone makes others open up. There are also people who talk endlessly, yet no one truly listens. Everything lies in a kind of frequency, like a mysterious vibration connecting your mind with the world around you. When that frequency is clear, honest, and steady, you become a magnet. When it is chaotic, broken, or filled with fear, life becomes a maze. You cannot see that frequency with your eyes, but you feel it in every encounter. You feel it when someone walks in and the entire room becomes lighter. You feel it when a voice makes your heart settle. You feel it when you stand before someone and cannot explain why they trust you, love you, dislike you, or walk away from you. That invisible power is not magic. It is the essence of communication, something most people never study, never touch, yet use every single day. And because they do not realize it, they lose hundreds of opportunities, drop dozens of relationships, and miss countless doors they could have stepped through. It is not talent that is buried. It is not potential that is wasted. It is communication energy that has never been awakened. The scariest thing is not that you are not skilled yet. The scariest thing is that you do not know what you are transmitting. The anxiety in your eyes, the stiffness in your voice, the defensiveness in every breath. All of it becomes a message, and the world responds exactly as you send it. But when you wake up to this truth, everything begins to change. You no longer speak to be heard. You speak to be felt. You no longer listen to respond. You listen to reflect the soul of the person in front of you. You no longer use words to fill space. You use presence to create a space where truth can open. From this moment on, remember one thing. You do not speak only with your mouth. You speak with your whole being. And when you change that frequency, life changes with you. People do not change because they lack information. People only change when they touch a form of energy strong enough to shake the way they see themselves. And communication, at its deepest level, is the bridge between the version of you that you are living and the version life wants you to step into. Not a bridge made of words. It is a bridge made of awareness. Every time you speak a sentence, you are not only conveying a thought, you are sending out a map of your inner world. Your voice reveals beliefs. Your eyes expose limits. Your breath shows whether you are anxious or steady. And your body, whether you want it to or not, always speaks more clearly than any sentence you try to arrange. This opens an important truth. You have never communicated only with words. You communicate with your very essence. That is why certain doors open only when you change the way you show up. Why some people are trusted instantly. Why the same sentence from one person makes hearts unfold, while from another it makes the air heavy. It is not because the words differ. It is because the self behind the words differs. Communication is not measured by how many times you speak. It is measured by the depth others can feel from you. Remember the moments that changed the direction of your life. A sentence that showed you a way out. A look that gave you strength. A timely reminder that opened a new chapter. That was not the power of words alone. It was the power of energy. It was truth transmitted through a channel deeper than conscious thought. In that moment, communication becomes a bridge between the person you are now and the person you can become. Most people see communication only at the surface level, like speaking or persuading or presenting, but those things are only the visible part. The hidden part deep inside is the truth that communication is the structure of the self. It is how you connect with yourself before you connect with the world. If you say something you do not truly believe, others hear the misalignment. If you try to appear strong while your heart is shaking, others feel the tension. If you use gentle words but the energy you emit is fear, others sense the unease before they hear your good intention. The world does not respond to the words. The world responds to the person speaking them. Those who communicate deeply do not try to persuade. They do not speak to win. They speak to open. They speak to shift awareness. They speak to create a space where others can see themselves. Communication becomes a bridge when you speak from your truth instead of a performance. When you see the person inside the other instead of the armor they wear. When you listen to understand their state instead of searching for a reply. When you use stillness to guide instead of reacting in haste. When you choose words from truth instead of from defense. When this happens, you create a space. In that space, the person in front of you does not only see you, they see themselves. When you show up deeply, others naturally look into their own inner world. When you speak from a true place, others feel safe enough to drop their guard. When you listen with stillness, others speak more honestly, open more fully, and trust you more deeply. The communication bridge opens in two directions. You walk toward them, and they walk toward you. But at the same time, another bridge opens. You walk toward yourself. Communication is a mirror of essence. Every conversation reflects you back to yourself. You see the places in you that are still afraid, the places still avoiding, the places not yet willing to grow, the places still trying to please others, the places still living under the shadow of old expectations. And in that very moment, you see the version you can become, a calmer version, less reactive and more aware, a more truthful version, no longer hiding your vulnerability, a more insightful version, knowing that emotions are waves while truth stands still, a steadier version, no longer pulled into the chaotic energy of others, a deeper version, seeing what lies beneath words and behind eyes. When you step onto this bridge, you no longer speak to display. You speak to guide. You no longer listen to counter. You listen to understand. You no longer communicate as a reaction. You communicate as a choice. And here is the decisive intersection. You cannot become the strongest version of yourself if you do not understand the language of energy you emit. You cannot step into a larger future if you still communicate through small beliefs. You cannot enter a new chapter if the voice inside you is still the voice of the past. Communication is not just a skill. Communication is the essence of evolution. Every sentence you speak is a step on the bridge of destiny. And each step, no matter how small, brings you closer to the great self awaiting you ahead. You can choose every word carefully. Train your voice to be polished. Learn every expression technique people admire. But if emotion does not touch emotion, every sentence becomes an empty echo. People are not awakened by information. People are awakened by feeling. What shapes the true power of communication is not the sentence you speak. It is what happens inside the listener after that sentence reaches them. Words are only a door. Emotion is the hand that turns the key. When you communicate with emotion, you are not only delivering information, you are transmitting life energy. That energy goes deep into layers the mind cannot reach. People do not remember words. People remember what they felt when they heard you. And if you observe long enough, you will notice that influence in this world belongs to those who send emotion first and let words follow. They do not speak from the head. They speak from the energy center between the heart and inner stillness. Most people try to be correct when they communicate, but emotion does not need to be correct. Emotion needs to be real, and your truth is sometimes stronger than 1,000 perfect techniques. When you allow your emotion to have space, your voice becomes fuller, your eyes brighter, your breath slower, and your presence deeper. The other person feels that even when you think you are not showing anything, emotion cannot be hidden. Even if you control your sentence, even if you try to appear calm, the energy inside you still finds a way out through every pause, every small swallow, every slight glance away. And people notice that faster than you think. We are programmed to read energy before reading words. When meeting a stranger, you do not remember what they said. You remember how their presence made you feel. That is why deep conversations always leave you feeling lighter, more spacious, lifted. Not because the words were beautiful, but because the speaker emitted an energy that opened your mind. Another person might say the same thing, but if their energy is filled with fear, filled with the need to be accepted, filled with restlessness, their sentence hits the ground before it reaches the heart. At the deepest level, communication is an emotional current flowing between two nervous systems. Every dialogue is two energy fields merging. Whoever has the stronger field will lead the conversation, but stronger does not mean louder or forceful. Stronger means deeper, more truthful, more stable. You have spoken with someone whose voice alone made you calm. That is emotional communication. You have heard someone angry, and before they finished the sentence, tension spread into you. That is also emotional communication. You have heard someone talk about their dream with intense aliveness, and your chest warmed for no clear reason. That is emotion transmitting emotion. A sentence spoken from the heart always carries a different weight. It creates a vibration inside the listener. A light vibration when your words touch only their mind. A strong vibration when they touch emotions they are trying to hide. And a deep vibration when they feel you understand something they have never said out loud. That is why influential people never try to impress. They try to be honest with their emotions. That honesty creates resonance. People do not want perfect words. People want truthful words. Because truth has its own frequency. And that frequency opens the doors of another person's soul. Emotion never lies. If you speak from tension, others feel unsafe. If you speak from fear, others feel guarded. If you speak from competitiveness, others resist. But when you speak from peace, others open. When you speak from sincerity, others let down their armor. When you speak from quiet confidence, others want to keep listening. Communicating with emotion means you do not express with the mind alone, but with your entire being. It is when you let the heart guide and let the mind follow. Not impulsiveness, but deep awareness of yourself and the person in front of you. A person who speaks with emotion turns a conversation into a living space. No longer an exchange of information, it becomes a meeting of two essences, the heartbeat of two minds, the harmony of two energy fields. And when this happens, the conversation rises beyond words. It becomes a memory. Emotion is what creates memory. When you understand this, you know how to send emotion first. You know how to let your breath, your eyes, your stillness, and your vocal rhythm carry the message before the words leave your mouth. You know that people do not need a perfect sentence. They need the safety to be themselves. And only your genuine emotion can create that safety. In every human evolution, emotional communication is the foundation. You can succeed through intellect, but you reach another's heart only through emotion. And once the heart opens, any sentence can become a doorway to transformation. From this moment on, every time you enter a conversation, remember that emotion is the first language. Words are only the delayed version of emotion. If the emotion is right, the words will naturally be right. If the emotion is wrong, the words mean nothing, no matter how beautiful they sound. Communication is the art of touching another human with something invisible, and emotion is the first bridge that leads you into their world. There is a truth most people never understand. The world does not operate on logic. The world operates on energy. You can give reasons. You can analyze, persuade, and argue. But if the energy you bring does not align with the mind of the person in front of you, everything you try to convey dissolves before it reaches them. In every encounter, the first thing people sense is not the words. It is the energy field emitted from you. Others feel you before they hear you, and that alone determines whether you touch their heart or are shut out at the doorway. We are not machines powered by data. We are sensing beings. Your heart reacts to energy faster than your mind reacts to reason. That is why a sincere hand in yours can make you cry, but a brilliant speech may not move you at all. Information creates understanding. Energy creates transformation. When you speak to someone, the meaning of your sentence is only the outer shell. The energy behind it is the part that touches the heart. If you speak from fear, your energy shrinks the conversation. If you speak from judgment, your energy builds an invisible wall. If you speak from tension, the space between you tightens like a door being pulled shut. But when you speak from sincerity, the space opens. When you speak from calmness, the other mind softens. When you speak from understanding, they return to themselves. When you speak from love, they shed the armor they have carried for years. The energy you carry is the light guiding the information you send out. A sentence can be correct yet fail to land if the energy behind it is not strong enough. Many people wonder why no one ever understands them. They do not realize the problem is not in their content. The problem lies in the energy of delivery. When your energy is weak, your words sink beneath countless other emotions. When your energy is chaotic, your words lose direction. But when your energy is clear and clean, even if you say just one word, others still understand what you mean. They understand not through logic but through feeling, not through analysis but through intuition, not through thought but through the frequency they absorb. Some people walk into a room and no one truly hears them, not because their voice is small, but because their energy lacks presence. Others step through the door and the atmosphere shifts, not because they are important, but because they carry a frequency so strong that the surrounding energy fields rearrange to match them. You have met people whose mere presence makes you feel peaceful. They say little, but their energy wraps around you like a soft blanket. That is energetic communication. You have also met people whose very breath weighs you down. That too is energetic communication. Humans are talking energy columns. Every conversation is the interaction of two energy fields, scanning each other. When two frequencies harmonize, connection flows easily. When they clash, every word becomes a burden. Therefore, to touch the heart of another, you cannot focus only on words. You must focus on the energy behind the words. That is why people who speak little are still deeply listened to. That is why some are not polished speakers, yet their words pierce straight into the heart. Because they are not transmitting information. They are transmitting a state. You cannot hide energy. It reveals itself even when you are silent. It appears in your eyes before you say the first sentence. It touches others before your voice arrives. If you want to reach someone's heart, you must first reach your own energy. You must know what you are carrying. Whether you carry peace or unease, confidence or doubt, wounds or healing. Others feel it, even if they do not say so. Your energy determines how they open up. It determines whether they feel safe enough to tell you what they have buried for years. It determines whether they dare to show their true self in front of you. You do not need to be perfect for your energy to be strong. You only need to be real. Real emotion creates real energy, and real energy always has the power to touch another heart. In your development, you will realize communication is not the use of technique. Communication is cleaning the inner space so the energy passing through you is not distorted. When you speak from stillness, your words are light as wind yet deep as the ocean. When you speak from peace, your sentences become an anchor for another mind. When you speak from truly knowing yourself, you open the door for the other to know themselves. That is the true power of communication, not making people hear you, but making people feel themselves through your words. When that happens, their heart opens. And when the heart opens, every message becomes a flame. Communicating through energy is the shortest path to touching the truth inside another mind. And when you touch that truth, you do not only change them, you also move deeper into your own essence. There is a quiet power that surpasses every communication technique humans have ever created. A power not found in what you say, but in your ability to let others see themselves when they stand before you. That power is called listening like a mirror. Most people think listening means being silent so the other person can speak. But that silence is often just waiting, a patience preparing for their own reply, a pause to find a counterpoint, a space where the mind wanders while the face pretends to focus. But true listening is not waiting for your turn. True listening is turning yourself into a mirror. When someone speaks, you do not reflect with your thoughts. You reflect with your presence. They look at you and suddenly hear their own voice more clearly. People suffer not because no one speaks to them. People suffer because no one truly sees them. Listening like a mirror is the way for others to be seen, heard, and understood in the deepest form. A mirror does not judge, does not interrupt, does not edit the image, does not add anything to the truth. It only reflects honestly. When you listen this way, the other person decodes their own emotions, untangles their own knots, finds their own answers they thought they were asking you for. That is why those who listen deeply are naturally trusted. Others feel safe around them, not because they speak correctly, but because standing near them makes the mind clearer, lighter, and less tangled. Listening like a mirror is letting the mind quiet down until only presence remains, not inserting advice before it is asked for, not reacting quickly, not projecting your own pain onto others. When someone speaks, you let each sentence move into you without forcing it into your own interpretations. This is not easy. The ego always wants to hear itself, always wants to prove it understands, always wants to show it has the answers. But when you truly listen, you set the ego aside. You allow yourself to become a space, a still ground where the other person can lay their story down. And when they place it down, you do not pick it up to dissect it. You simply hold it like a delicate object. The strange thing is, the deeper you listen, the more you see what lies beneath the words. You feel the sadness they do not speak. You hear the hopes they dare not admit. You see the wounds they hide under a smile. And that recognition, even unspoken, is already one of the greatest gifts one human can give another. When you listen without interruption, the other person begins to hear themselves. They hear fears they have never named. They hear exhaustion long buried under responsibility. They hear the small voice inside them calling for help. And sometimes, simply hearing themselves is already half the healing. Listening is not a passive act. Listening is the active art of empathy. Listening is the art of harmonizing energy. When you are quiet, the other person becomes quiet. When you are slow, they slow down. When you are not tense, they begin to remove their armor. And when two minds meet in the same frequency of calm, the conversation becomes a ritual of healing. A good mirror reflects reality. A mirror of consciousness reflects the soul. When you listen like a mirror of consciousness, you are not just hearing, you are feeling. You are coexisting with them in a space where time seems to disappear. Not because the conversation is exciting, but because two souls are touching. In such conversations, you do not need to try to be wise. Stillness is already wise. You do not need to search for answers. Answers appear on their own when no one interrupts. You do not need to do anything to be valuable. Your value lies in becoming a space where another person can be true to themselves. Sometimes you only need to nod to show you are still there. Sometimes you only need to breathe softly to show you are listening. Sometimes you only need to look at them with non-judgmental eyes, so they have the courage to say what they have never said to anyone. Not every pain needs advice. Many pains simply need a place to be set down in front of a heart that does not run away. When you listen like a mirror, you are giving another person a sacred gift. You are telling them with your presence that you matter. Your story deserves to be heard. Your pain does not push me away. I do not run when you cry. I am not afraid when you are fragile. I am here with you. And in that presence, the speaker finds another version of themselves, a version less lonely, a version with more faith in themselves, a version brave enough to continue. The interesting thing is that when you listen this way, you also learn many things about yourself. You see the places in your mind still unsettled. You see the places afraid of others' pain because it touches your own. You see the places where you want to give advice too quickly to avoid your own discomfort. Deep listening is both a gift to others and a mirror for yourself. And when you understand this, you realize a truth. Communication is not an exchange of information. Communication is a meeting of truths, the truth within you and the truth within the other. Listening is the way you invite those truths to appear. When you know how to listen like a mirror, you no longer speak to be understood. You listen so the other person understands themselves. And when a person understands themselves, they change. Not because of your advice, but because the truth inside them has just been seen. That is the real power of communication. Not making you a good speaker, but making you someone through whom others find themselves. There is a kind of power people often overlook because it is not loud, not flashy, and does not decorate the ego. Yet it is the foundation of every deep connection. That power is silent presence. Not silence because you do not know what to say. Silence because you do not need to say anything to create influence. In life, most communication is covered by noise. The noise of expectations, the noise of wanting to be right, the noise of fear of judgment, the noise of the ego trying to prove itself. People rarely realize that when the mind is too noisy, they cannot truly be present. And without presence, they cannot touch the truth in any conversation. But silent presence is like a strip of emptiness. When you step into it, everything becomes clear. Not because you found the answer, but because you are no longer shaken by the wrong answers. Others feel this even when you say nothing. When you sit with someone and your mind is still, your breath steady, your eyes present, the entire space becomes a safe zone, a place where truth no longer needs to hide. Some people shift the atmosphere simply by entering a room, not because they are powerful or impressive, but because they carry what the world lacks most, inner stillness. Others look at them and feel as if they have stepped out of a storm into the shade of an ancient tree, strong without being forceful, peaceful without being passive. That is the power of presence. Silent presence is the ability to bring yourself fully into this exact moment. You do not chase thoughts. You do not judge what others say. You do not prepare replies. You do not try to be interesting. You do not try to dominate. You simply are, whole, complete, and that alone changes others. When you are present so deeply your mind no longer wanders, the person before you begins to hear their own mind more clearly, because somehow the two minds start to synchronize. The other slows down, releases tension, lowers their guard, calms their emotional turbulence. They begin to relax because they feel that in front of them is not someone trying to win, but someone who is present. Nothing touches the soul faster than meeting a still mind. In this restless world, very few ever encounter true stillness, so when it appears, it becomes magnetic, a force that makes others want to open up, share, and be more honest with themselves. Silent presence not only changes others, it changes you. It helps you hear the subtle layers of emotion you usually miss. You hear the fear behind a forced smile, the hope behind a calm sentence, the wound beneath a strong voice. You hear what the other person has not admitted even to themselves. But this ability does not come from trying to observe. It comes from being still long enough for your mind to become a calm surface. When the water is still, the reflection is clear. When the mind is still, truth appears effortlessly. Silent presence is not cold silence. It is silence rich with understanding. Like stepping into an ancient temple. No noise, no lecture, just a space that pulls your mind back to its original state. A person with this kind of presence does not need to speak much. Their silence speaks for them. It says, I am not running away from this moment. I am not running away from you. I am not running away from myself. And when you stand before someone who is not running, you also no longer want to run. Silent presence is also how you protect yourself from the chaotic energy of the world. A person disconnected from their inner stillness is shaken by everything. A harsh sentence irritates them. A hostile glance unsettles them. A careless comment shakes them. But a person truly present is not pulled into others' emotions. They are like a mountain. The wind may be strong but cannot topple the rock. Waves may be high but cannot erode the base. They stand firm naturally without trying to appear strong. In the deepest conversations, presence decides everything. If you are present, others feel your truth. If you are absent within yourself, they sense your insecurity no matter what you say. Many try to speak better, but if their mind is not present, even beautiful words become empty. Conversely, if the mind is present, even a simple sentence becomes a source of light. Silent presence also creates natural authority. No force, no dominance, no persuasion. A deeply present person generates an energy field that makes others naturally slow down, listen, and respect. Authority does not come from dominance. Authority comes from stability. An interesting truth is that when you are truly present, you begin to understand not only the other but also yourself. You see the places where your mind still trembles. You see the emotional wounds still unhealed. You see the old reactions trying to rise again. Silent presence lets you observe yourself without being absorbed by yourself. That is the first step to inner wisdom. And in the moment you can stand still within your own being, you finally hear the real conversation taking place. Not the conversation of words, but the conversation of energy. Words can deceive, emotions can be hidden, but energy cannot. When you are present, you sense it clearly. In every journey of evolution, silent presence is the threshold. When you learn to cross it, you do not only change the way you communicate, you change the way you move through life. You carry clearer energy, steadier energy, deeper energy. And from that energy, others find their own truth. Silent presence does not create noise. It creates depth. It does not create pressure. It creates space. It does not make people afraid. It makes people trust. And when people trust, their hearts open. And when the heart opens, every conversation becomes a healing journey. There are moments in life when you hear someone speak, and even though they are not trying to persuade you, you still believe them. Not because they have sharp logic, not because they have eloquent skills, not because they have power or status, but because their voice carries something rare in a world full of defenses. That something is authenticity. A genuine voice is not a perfect voice. It may tremble. It may carry a hint of vulnerability. It may still bear the imprint of an unhealed wound. Yet that very imperfection makes it more trustworthy than any flawless speech. Because authenticity is the primal frequency of human beings, and the soul recognizes that frequency instantly. When you hear someone speak with authenticity, you do not just hear sound. You hear their history. You hear the wounds they have walked through. You hear the lessons they paid for with tears. You hear the long-buried emotions they carried into the dark. And strangely, that authenticity makes you feel closer to them. In a world where people wear too many masks, authenticity becomes a kind of light, not a dazzling light, just a true one, and that light guides trust to appear. A genuine voice does not need to be loud to have power. It only needs to be aligned with the heart, the mind, and the energy you carry. When your voice and your being merge, others no longer hear you with their ears. They hear you with intuition. They sense that every word you speak comes from a deep place within you. Many people try to refine their voice to make it stronger, smoother, or more captivating, but they forget that what makes a voice compelling is not its perfection, but its truth. A voice not supported by authenticity will always lack weight. It reaches the ear, but not the heart. You can notice this when listening to someone speak. Sometimes they say everything right, use beautiful words, and speak flawlessly, yet you feel no connection. Their voice is like a closed door, beautiful but impossible to step through. The speaker is present, but their soul stands behind an invisible wall. On the other hand, some voices do not begin with perfect confidence, but they have warmth, they have honesty, they have consistency between emotion and sound, and that alone makes you unable to stop listening. A genuine voice is like water running over stone, gentle but steady, not loud yet unmistakable. It carries the message, "This is my truth. I do not hide it. I do not deny it. I do not reshape it to please you. I offer it to you as it is." A person who speaks with authenticity never makes you feel pressured. They do not try to change you. They simply stand there, present with their truth, and truth has its own power. It makes others feel safe. It makes others feel less alone. It makes others believe they too can be authentic without being judged. Interestingly, when you speak with authenticity, you free yourself. You no longer strain. You no longer calculate what to say or not say. You no longer bend yourself to fit others' expectations. You speak from your genuine state, and in that state, your body, mind, and soul breathe together in one rhythm. In that moment, your voice becomes a bridge between two souls. No longer a typical conversation, but a meeting, a gentle touch between two beings. And that meeting is what truly changes people. A genuine voice carries three elements. The first is courage. To speak truth, you must stand before the fear of being hurt. The second is transparency. You do not hide feelings to create an impression. The third is gentleness. Authenticity is not sharp or wounding. Authenticity is expressing true emotion softened by the heart. A genuine voice also carries healing. When you speak truth from a place free of judgment, you allow others to release what they have held back. You give them space to breathe, a place where truth is not punished. And when truth is no longer punished, fear begins to dissolve. A genuine voice is not about saying everything. It is about saying what rises from inner clarity. When you speak that way, each word feels solid. Not solid with logic, solid with inner stability. And the other person senses that instantly. When you speak with authenticity, you connect not only with the other person, but with yourself. You discover that truth does not weaken you as you once believed. It frees you. It releases you from roles. It frees you from expectations that are not yours. It brings you back to the purest version of your being. A genuine voice is also an invitation for others to be authentic with themselves. No pressure, just an invitation, and that invitation can shift even hearts long closed. In communication, authenticity is the foundation of trust, and trust is the foundation of connection. Without authenticity, there is no trust. Without trust, there is no connection. And without connection, communication becomes only a surface exchange. When you understand this, you stop trying to speak beautifully. You speak truthfully. You stop trying to phrase things so others accept you. You speak as someone who has already accepted themselves. And when you accept yourself, the world finds it easier to accept you. A genuine voice is not something you train. It is something you uncover. It already exists within you. It is only hidden behind fear and defense. When you lay those down, your genuine voice steps out naturally. And when it does, you realize you never needed to try to attract others. Authenticity itself is magnetic. A genuine voice is the key to opening the door of connection, not by force, but by resonance. When two souls meet in authenticity, something profound happens. The other person does not just hear you, they see themselves, and that is the foundation of all transformation. People are often afraid of silence. They fear the pauses in conversation, fear the emptiness, fear the moments when they do not know what to say. Yet it is precisely this fear that prevents them from understanding one of the deepest powers in communication: intentional silence. A form of energy without sound that reaches places words can never touch. Silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is space. And in that space, truth has the chance to appear. Most people speak too much because they are trying to hide what they are afraid to face. When emotion rises, they fill it with words. When they are unsure, they fill it with opinions. When they begin to feel their own vulnerability, they fill it with logic. But intentional silence is not an escape from vulnerability. It is how you stand face to face with it. When you know how to use silence, you turn it into an amplifier. Because in those still moments, the other person begins to truly feel what you said. The words no longer wash away. They sink in, expand, and touch places that countless sentences could never reach. There are things you say that others understand only when you stop speaking. It is the moment you fall silent that they absorb. Silence is not just the break. It is what allows meaning to grow. Just like in music, the rests create the rhythm. And in communication, silence creates depth. A sentence without silence is like rain falling on a rippling lake. It touches but leaves no trace. But if the water is still, even one drop creates widening circles. When you speak from the stillness within you, you do not need many words. Each one carries weight, not the heaviness of burden, but the weight of clarity. And that clarity is born from silence. Silence to understand what you are saying. Silence for the other to understand what they are hearing. Intentional silence is also a test of authenticity. When you are silent, you must see clearly what is happening inside. You cannot hide behind words. You cannot use logic to control. You are left with only yourself. And from that place, what you say afterward becomes truer, deeper. Many people see silence as weakness, but the silent one is not weak. The silent one needs no external anchor. When you are peaceful enough to be silent, you are saying, I control myself. I am not pulled into emotional chaos. I am not swayed by what others think of me. I stand firm in my own space. That is the kind of power others feel without you having to prove anything. They sense you are deep enough not to be shaken, still enough not to be provoked, clear enough not to be confused by the noise of the world. In communication, intentional silence plays an even more important role. It is a mirror. It reflects what the other person feels. When you are silent at the right moment, the person before you can finally hear themselves. They hear what they did not finish saying. They hear emotions they were trying to hide. They hear thoughts buried under fear and defense. Have you noticed that sometimes when you stay silent, others keep speaking and reveal another layer of truth? Because your silence is not empty. It is accepting silence, allowing silence. The silence of someone who is truly there. Not every moment requires a response. Sometimes silence is the response. It tells the other person that you are listening, that you are not running away, that you have space to hold their story. And that alone opens a door no amount of comforting words can open. Intentional silence also helps you speak less but say more accurately. When you pause before responding, you hear what you truly want to say. Not what the ego pushes, not what fear suggests. not what old habits dictate. You hear the inner voice, and that voice is always more accurate than the voice of the ego. When you speak from the space of silence, you do not strain to speak beautifully. You say what is true. You do not rush. You speak what is real. You do not say much. You say what matters. And that simplicity makes others listen. In deep communication, those who influence the most are those who use silence as part of their message. They are not afraid of the quiet. They use it to create a bridge. They use it to honor the other person's emotion. They use it to show they are steady enough not to be shaken by discomfort. There are moments when silence becomes the strongest voice in the conversation, when someone is hurting and cannot express it, when someone stands at the edge of breaking, when someone is trying to find the words for something they have never said. If you interrupt, you break the rhythm. But if you stay silent, you hold the space for them to cross that threshold. Intentional silence is the art of maturity. It requires the courage not to fill every gap, the depth not to prove anything, the awareness to know that sometimes the best thing you can do is not speak, but be present. In this noisy world, intentional silence is not a lack. It is a gift, a rare gift, a gift only minds that have traveled many layers of understanding can offer. When you master silence, you do not just master communication, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, you become a light in conversations where others are lost. Silence does not take away your power. Silence gives you a power words can never offer. The power to guide, the power to support, the power to heal. There is a doorway only hearts that know empathy can enter. A doorway not found in words or actions. It exists in the space between two souls. When you look at someone not only with your eyes but with the deep sensing of your inner being, you begin to see the parts they do not speak. You step into their inner world without asking for permission. Not because you invade, but because they unconsciously open the door for you. Empathy is not pity, not agreement, not trying to feel what another feels. Empathy is the ability to let your heart align with the emotional frequency of the person before you. You do not need to fully understand their story. You only need to allow your heart to respond with honesty. Most people meet on the surface. They exchange information, not souls. They speak to each other but never touch each other. And without empathy, a conversation is nothing more than lines passing through the mind without leaving a trace. But with empathy, the encounter becomes a kind of ritual, a ritual that opens the door into the inner world of the other. Empathy begins with reading unspoken signals, a slightly lowered gaze, a breath longer than usual, a moment of hesitation before answering, a subtle tightening at the corner of the mouth when they try to appear fine. These things never lie, and if you are present deeply enough, you notice them before they can hide them. When you empathize, you look at the person before you and see a human trying their best, a human who has been hurt, a human who has been disappointed, a human who has been misunderstood, a human carrying layers of emotions they do not know where to place. In that moment, you do not just hear them, you hold them with your heart. Empathy does not require you to agree. It requires you to be spacious enough to hold their experience without judgment. Without empathy, people react. With empathy, people connect. Reaction creates distance. Connection creates familiarity. And the inner world only opens when someone feels that familiarity. There are wounds that cannot be spoken into words, but they appear in the way someone breathes, in how their hands tighten, in how they look down when emotion rises. If you are tuned to the right frequency, you hear the story behind each small action. And only when you see these things do you have the chance to guide them toward a deeper truth within themselves. Empathy is also the ability to sense the pain the other has not realized. They may hide it from the world, but cannot hide it from their energy. When you come close, you feel a heaviness, a tremble, a subtle chaos, not because they speak of it, but because they carry it. Empathy is the art of reading energy before reading words. But empathy is not only sensing pain, it is sensing joy, sensing hope, sensing the life flickering inside them, sensing what makes their eyes light up even for a moment. When you empathize, you see them more fully than they see themselves. You see the beauty they never voice. You see the strength beneath the fragility. You see they are not only the story they tell, they are a world of layers. A person who empathizes does not try to fix others. They do not try to change the other's emotion. They do not cover sadness with hollow comfort. They simply stay, allowing the other to feel everything they feel. Because sometimes what people need is not an answer. It is permission to feel. When you give someone the feeling of being allowed to feel without being judged, you help them release their suppressed emotions. You help them step out of the cycle of self-blame. You help them see life with lighter eyes. And in that space, healing begins. Empathy is also the foundation for boundaries. An empathetic heart is not easily used. It knows when someone truly needs help and when they are avoiding responsibility. Empathy helps you feel the difference between supporting and rescuing, between lifting and enabling, between loving and blind sacrifice. An empathetic person does not carry the emotions of others on their own shoulders. They do not let another's pain become their burden. They simply create space for that emotion to be seen, named, and acknowledged. And that alone is enough for healing to begin. Empathy is the ability to see truth without harming, to enter someone's inner world without taking it, to touch another's heart without breaking it, and to guide them to their deeper layers without imposing your will. When you empathize, you do not speak for them. You help them speak what they have not dared to say. You do not decide for them. You help them rediscover their own voice. You do not lead them by your desires. You lead them by the light reflected back from within them. An empathetic heart does not need to try to be special, because simply by showing up with empathy, you become a place others return to, not because you are perfect, but because you can see them when they cannot see themselves. Empathy opens a door where logic fails. When the heart opens, the mind opens. And when the mind opens, what was once locked can finally be released. In the journey of inner growth, empathy is not only a skill, it is evolution. When you empathize, you do not only understand others, you understand yourself. You recognize the parts of you that still need holding. You realize humans do not only need to be heard, they need to be understood, not by logic, but by the heart. And when the heart is understood, it opens. That is the moment true connection begins. There are truths like morning light, strong enough to illuminate every dark corner, yet gentle enough not to make anyone shield their eyes. And there are truths like lightning. They ignite a flash of realization, but they also bring pain. The one who speaks truth must choose to become morning light, not lightning. Because when you speak truth, the goal is not victory. The goal is healing. In this world, many people use truth as a weapon. They throw truth at others and feel proud of being direct. But directness has no value if the heart behind it is not wide enough. A truth spoken with judgment wounds, but a truth spoken with a gentle heart opens the door to change. People remember the feeling they experienced when they heard the truth more than the truth itself. If that feeling is full of hurt, they close. If that feeling is full of trust, they open. Therefore, the important thing is not saying what is right. The important thing is saying it the right way. Speaking truth is not a right. It is a responsibility. And the greatest responsibility of truth is not adding wounds to places already in pain. There are moments when you must say what someone is not yet ready to hear, but if you speak with sharpness, they will instantly put up a wall. They are not resisting the truth. They are resisting the way you delivered it. A knife-sharp sentence always makes the heart shrink, but a sentence soft as water can seep into places reason cannot reach. Speaking truth with gentleness is understanding that the other person's emotions matter as much as the truth you bring. You do not soften the truth. You soften its landing, like placing a stone on the surface of the water instead of throwing it. The stone is still the stone, but the surface does not shatter. There is a quiet power in gentleness. It is not weakness. It is the understanding that the human heart is the most sensitive place. You can touch it to heal, but you can also fracture it with one careless sentence. Those who share truth gently always observe the emotion of the other before speaking, not to avoid, but to choose the right rhythm. Truth has its own rhythm. Sometimes it must be spoken now. Sometimes it must wait. Sometimes it must be held in silence. Sometimes it must be approached from a softer angle. Truth given at the right moment becomes a seed. Given at the wrong moment becomes a thorn. When you speak truth with the intention of healing, you do not try to prove. You simply offer light so the other person can see their own path. Light does not pull them forward. Light only illuminates, and they will walk when they are ready. Some fear speaking truth because they fear hurting others. But avoiding truth is not kindness. Avoiding truth keeps someone in the dark longer. What they need is not for you to hide truth. What they need is for you to have enough gentleness to speak the truth they fear facing. There are truths that become medicine when spoken with gentleness, but become poison when spoken with judgment. The difference lies in the emotion behind the words. If your heart is full of unhealed pain, you will speak truth like a throw, unloading your burden onto them. But if your heart stands in clarity, you will speak truth like an open hand, placing something gently on their heart while saying, "You are not alone in this." Gentleness does not weaken truth. It allows truth to reach deeper. Gentleness is the soft path that carries truth where the hard road would be blocked. Speaking truth with gentleness also requires seeing the good in the other. You do not only speak the truth of what they did wrong, you speak the truth of what they can become. That is the difference between criticism and upliftment. Criticism highlights the flaw. Upliftment highlights the potential. When you speak truth through upliftment, you do not only help them face their darkness, you help them see their light. In life, there are moments when truth must be spoken to establish boundaries. Moments when truth must be spoken to end suffering. Moments when truth must be spoken to save yourself. But in all these moments, gentleness is what keeps the heart from breaking too deeply. Gentleness makes truth breathable. It makes the other feel respected. It shows them you stand with them, not against them. When they feel that, they stop resisting. They open. And when they open, truth enters without force. Some truths spoken in a whisper carry more power than those shouted aloud, because a whisper carries intimacy, care, connection, and the human heart always opens to what arrives through intimacy. In communication, truth is the light, but gentleness is the pair of hands that brings the light to the right place. If light is thrown, people cover their eyes. If light is handed gently, they lean closer to see. Truth is never the enemy. The way truth is spoken can become the enemy. And only when you learn to speak truth with gentleness can you save relationships, heal old wounds, and illuminate the darkest corners of someone's mind without creating new harm. In the journey of growth, gentleness in truth is the mark of wisdom. Because only the strong can be gentle when speaking truth. The weak use truth as a shield or a sword. The strong use truth as light. Light does not harm. Light only reveals. There are moments when you step into a room and before you say a word, every gaze turns toward you. There are other moments when you speak hundreds of sentences and no one truly listens. The difference is not in the volume of your voice or the sharpness of your words. The difference lies in the energy you carry. It is what arrives before any speech. It is the invisible signal sent into the world through each breath, each gesture, each emotional pulse. Your energy is the first introduction of who you are, and the world responds not to what you say but to what you radiate. Every human is a moving energy field. no two are the same. Some people enter and make the air lighter. Others create tension without even speaking. Some make you want to come closer. Others make you step back without knowing why. All of it comes from energy. What you carry within will show on the outside, even if you try to hide it. Suppressed fears appear as anxiety. Unhealed wounds show in unsteady eyes. The craving for validation reveals itself in a strained voice, and your distorted beliefs appear in the reactions you cannot control. But when your energy is clean, when you stand in true inner steadiness, others feel it naturally. No explanation needed, no proving needed, no changing yourself to fit anyone. Stable energy is a universal language. Everyone understands it. Everyone feels it. Strong energy is not loud energy. It is not exaggerated confidence, not dominance, not control. Strong energy is energy with center. It comes from a deep place within you where there is no conflict, where you know who you are, where you are not running from yourself. Many people spend their life learning how to speak well, but never learn how to master their energy. And when energy is unclear, even beautiful words carry no weight. Meanwhile, a person with steady energy can make the simplest sentence become guidance for others. The world reflects your energy back to you. When you carry anxious energy, you attract situations that make you more anxious. When you carry mistrust, you meet people who trigger suspicion. When you carry wounded energy, you encounter experiences that activate old pain. This is not punishment. It is reflection. The universe mirrors you perfectly. It shows you what you are carrying. It returns the frequency you emit. If you want to change the reflection, you must change the source. You cannot expect deep connection if the energy you send is defensive. You cannot expect respect if you carry fear. You cannot expect others to open their heart if the energy you offer is not safe. When you stand in the energy of clarity, everything shifts. People feel safe with you because your mind is not chaotic. They feel trust because your eyes do not hide. They feel ease because you do not emit pressure. They feel respected because you do not carry the need to control. Clear energy creates space, space that allows others to be themselves. No defense needed, no masks needed, no guessing your intentions. You show up as you are. And that is the greatest freedom a mind can experience in the presence of another. Some people you meet for the first time feel strangely familiar, not because they speak well, but because their energy does not create pressure. They do not judge. They do not carry unresolved storms. They do not impose expectations. They are simply an open and clean field. And you step into that field naturally. One sign of inner maturity is taking responsibility for your own energy. They do not blame the environment. They do not blame others for making them uncomfortable. They do not tell the story that someone else caused their anxiety. They understand their energy is their choice, and they adjust it whenever it falls out of alignment. The most important thing in communication is not what you say, but the energy you create when you say it. If your energy is clear, you do not need to persuade. Others feel your clarity and find their own. The energy you carry also shapes how you see the world. If your inner energy is unstable, you see the world as threatening. If your energy is judgmental, you see faults everywhere. If your energy is lacking, you always feel someone is withholding from you. But if your energy is abundant, the world feels abundant. If your energy is peaceful, the world becomes peaceful. Energy is the common language of all souls. It needs no translation, no explanation. It cannot be faked. It cannot lie. Every time you step into a space, your energy already tells the world who you are, what you carry, and what you expect. If you want to change how the world responds to you, change the energy you bring into life each day. Adjust your breath. Clean your mind. Open your heart. Be at peace with yourself. When those shift, your entire life shifts with them. The world does not respond to your words. The world responds to the person you are becoming. and the person you are becoming is shown most clearly through the energy you carry. There is a truth not everyone realizes. In every conversation, an emotional field is always at play, whether you are aware of it or not. This emotional field is stronger than logic, faster than reaction, and it determines the entire direction of the interaction. If you do not master it, you get pulled into someone else's chaos. But if you know how to adjust it, you become the guide. People often think communication is about words. But words are only the surface of the iceberg. The deeper part is emotion. Every sentence carries an emotional field, and that field always arrives before the words. The other person feels it before they understand the content. No interpretation needed. No analysis needed. The heart recognizes it instantly. What makes a conversation heavy is not difficult words. It is the emotional field of tension, defensiveness, or hurt spilling from one side. What makes a conversation gentle is not only soft wording, but the emotional field of stability and calm someone creates. When you step into a conversation, you do not bring just your voice. You bring an emotional field. If your field gets shaken by someone else's chaos, you become the receiver. But if you choose to stand firm and adjust your field first, you become the emitter. The emitter leads. The receiver gets swept along. Adjusting your emotional field is not suppressing emotion. Suppression is pushing down. Adjusting is transforming. When you suppress, the energy stays, only deeper. But when you adjust, you shift its frequency, from anxiety to calm, from chaos to clarity, from defense to openness. This requires a skill few people practice. The skill of returning inward to check yourself before reacting. In the moment you inhale deeply, you pull yourself out of the other's field and return to your own. From there, you choose what you will send. One slow, deep breath can change the entire emotional tone of a conversation. Because breath is the bridge that recalibrates the emotional field. When you breathe slowly, the pace of the mind slows. When the mind slows, emotion becomes clearer. And when emotion is clear, you no longer react unconsciously. You respond intentionally. Those who master their emotional field never let themselves get swept into someone else's storm. They do not let another's anger pull them into anger. They do not let another's anxiety make them frantic. They do not let another's negativity drop their frequency. They stand steady in their own, and that steadiness calms the other. A person who loses control of their emotions cannot harm you unless you allow it. They can only pull you into their field when your field is weak or open in the wrong way. But when you stand firm in your own peace, they are influenced by you, not the other way around. Observe people who are truly present in a conversation. They do not react instantly. They do not speak when their inner field is shaking. They take a moment to adjust their emotional rhythm, and only when their field returns to clarity do they speak, not because they fear saying the wrong thing, but because they understand that words spoken from an unstable field create chaos. Adjusting your emotional field not only makes you steady, it makes others feel supported. When someone is overwhelmed, they do not need the perfect sentence. They need a stable emotional field to lean on. You become an anchor when your frequency stays steady. You become a safe place when you do not get pulled into their storm. A sign of emotional maturity is the ability to balance between feeling and not getting swept away. They see another's emotion but do not merge with it. They notice anger but do not let it control them. They sense sadness but do not let it burden them. They are like a still lake, reflecting but not breaking. To adjust your emotional field, you need 3 elements. First is awareness. You must know what you feel, not running, not denying, just seeing. Second is acceptance. Not judging your feelings, not labeling them wrong, simply allowing them. Third is transformation. From fear to understanding, from anxiety to presence, from chaos to clarity. When you do this long enough, you become the stable source in any conversation. Another's anger does not shake you. Their fear does not disorient you. Their negativity does not stain you. You are like a steady flame. Anyone who comes close feels its warmth. Anyone who comes close feels safe. Your emotional field is also how you lead. Not with strong words, but with strong presence. When you hold a higher frequency, others naturally adjust theirs to match. No forcing, no persuading. Synchronization happens naturally, like two instruments aligning when one holds a steady rhythm. In every conversation, there is always a leader and a follower. Not in power, but in emotion. The leader is the one with the more stable field, and the follower is the one seeking something steady to hold. When you master your emotional field, you become the leader naturally, not by control, not by dominance, but through deep influence. The world does not need more eloquent speakers. The world needs more steady hearts, those who can stand in their peace, even when everything around them trembles, those who can keep their inner light alive even in darkness, those who can bring stability into a conversation through the energy they carry. When you know how to adjust your emotional field, you do not simply become a better communicator. You become someone others seek when they are lost. You become a place for them to breathe, a place to release, a place to return to their original rhythm. Adjusting the emotional field is the foundation of leading by presence. And when you lead by presence, the world responds with opportunities, relationships, and paths that only steady souls can walk. There are conversations that seem ordinary, yet a single moment of the right timing is enough to change the entire outcome. Not because the content of the sentence is extraordinary, but because it is placed at the right moment. In deep communication, timing is more important than the words themselves. A timely sentence can open doors that hundreds of untimely sentences can never open. And conversely, a correct sentence delivered at the wrong moment closes every door you are trying to open. Communication is not only about speaking and listening. Communication is the art of controlling rhythm, the rhythm between breath and emotion, between silence and speech, between receiving and responding. Those who master this rhythm can guide others' emotions without force or pressure. They do it simply by choosing the right moment. In every conversation, there is always an energetic flow. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes strong, sometimes fragile. If you speak against the flow, your words feel forced and create resistance. But if you wait for the right moment, you merge with the flow and gently guide it in the direction you want. Timing is the key. There are moments when you need to speak immediately, moments when you need to pause, moments when silence needs to fill the space, moments when you need to step in because the rhythm is breaking, moments when you must let the other person finish so you can see the deeper layers within them. Those without timing speak too early or too late. Those with sensitivity speak exactly when the other person's heart is ready. Timing determines whether you are building or breaking. A loving piece of advice spoken when someone is defensive turns into a weapon. But the same word spoken when their guard is down becomes medicine. Those who lack timing cause hurt unintentionally. Those who have timing heal without trying too hard. The art of timing begins with listening to the emotional rhythm of the conversation, the rhythm of tension, the rhythm of vulnerability, the rhythm of inner struggle, the rhythm of opening. You can feel these rhythms through the other person's breath, through the pauses between their words, through the downward glance when they touch pain, through the slight tremble in their voice when they are about to say something important. Someone who observes rhythm will not interrupt the moments when the other person needs space. They will not break the moment of self-reflection. They will not fill silence with the impatience of the ego. Instead, they let the rhythm unfold. They stay present to hold the moment. And when the time arrives, they speak. One sentence, two sentences, or sometimes just a word. But at the right moment. When you speak at the right moment, your words become an anchor. like a temple bell, sounding precisely when someone needs awakening. Not loud, not long, but deeply resonant. The art of timing also requires yielding. There are moments when you want to speak, but the other person needs silence more than you need to speak. Moments when you have the right advice, but they need to feel their emotions before receiving truth. Moments when you understand the problem from the beginning, but if you speak too soon, they will not see what they need to see. When you yield, you allow the conversation to develop naturally, and truth emerges at its own moment. A person with timing never argues. They do not speak while emotions are chaotic. They wait, allow the wave to settle, allow the mind to return to clarity. When they speak, there is no resistance left, only clarity. And clarity is always stronger than any argument. Timing is also the ability to know when to end a conversation. Some conversations must stop when the energy has drained. Some must close when the heart begins to shut. Some need no more words to feel complete. Those with timing stop at the right place. Stop before words become burden. Stop before emotions become wounds. Stop before the connection erodes. In the deepest conversations, silence and speech are like two breaths of the same life. Silence to create space, speech to offer direction, silence to let emotion expand, speech to bring insight forward, silence to allow inner processing, speech to mark a moment of transformation. Those who master timing become natural guides, not through power, but through rhythm. They bring a conversation from chaos to balance, from tension to peace, from surface to depth, from defense to openness. To do this, you need constant awareness. You must know that not everything that arises in your mind must be spoken immediately. Not every emotion needs instant expression. When you hold your own rhythm, you can feel the rhythm of others. And when the two rhythms align, the conversation becomes a gentle flow. In communication, timing is not only important, it is decisive. Because timing allows truth to arrive at the right moment, care to arrive at the right place, gentleness to arrive with the right intensity, clarity to arrive when the other heart is open. When you speak at the right moment, you do not merely influence, you transform. You are not only heard, you are felt. You do not only connect, you inspire. And when words touch the heart at the right moment, they ripple far beyond the conversation. The art of timing is the rhythm of wisdom in communication. And when you master that rhythm, you step into a level very few ever reach. A level where words become light, and silence becomes the space where light spreads. Here is the full translation of your paragraph, in a single, uninterrupted block. No line breaks, no extra punctuation beyond what is required, and fully faithful to the Vietnamese meaning. There is a phase in the journey of inner maturation when you realize that the true power of communication does not lie in what you say, but in the space you create. That space is not the room, not the physical distance between two people. It is a space of consciousness, a field of vibration that others step into and feel safe enough to become the most authentic version of themselves. When you become a space for others to transform, you do not need to be the one with all the answers. You do not need to be the one who gives advice. You do not need to be more skilled, more knowledgeable, or more profound. What you need is the ability to create an energetic field where the other person feels safe enough to release what they have held for too long. In this world, many people are good at speaking, but very few know how to become a space. Those who speak loudly create echoes. Those who become a space create transformation. Because when a heart is placed in a safe, energetic field, it naturally knows how to heal. It naturally finds its original rhythm. It naturally hears the inner voice that has long been silent out of fear of judgment. A space for transformation is not where you try to help others. It is where you coexist with them. When someone knows that you do not judge, do not push, do not impose expectations, they begin to open the places they normally dare not touch. Once they open, Change happens from within. You do not need to touch them. They touch themselves. When you become a space, you do not talk too much. You speak at the right moment. You do not try to fix their emotions. You let them experience. You do not try to extinguish their pain. You let it be named. You do not try to pull them out of the dark. You stand beside them so they do not walk alone. Many people think helping others means solving their problems. But true healing happens when that person finds their own inner strength. Your role is not to be the solver. Your role is to be the holder. The one who holds the light so they can see their own path. The one who holds the silence so they can hear their own heart. The one who holds the calm so they do not lose direction. When you become a space, you carry no judgment, no expectations, no impatience. You let the conversation unfold in its natural rhythm. And when you do this, the other person feels that they do not have to hide any part of themselves. They are allowed to be fragile, to be confused, to be hurt, to be imperfect. Even a single moment of such permission is enough to make their heart blossom after many years of being shut tight. Becoming a space for others to change requires you to be empty inside. Not empty from lack, but empty from not letting the ego interfere. The ego that wants to show off. The ego that wants to be right. The ego that wants to be heard. The ego that wants to be validated. When the ego quiets, you become a clear mirror. The other person looks at you and sees themselves more clearly. To become a space, you need the ability to adjust your rhythm to theirs without losing yourself. When they tremble, you become their anchor. When they are angry, you become a calm lake. When they despair, you become a thin ray of light. When they are confused, you become the steady breath that guides them back. A person able to become a space is someone who has walked through their own darkness and is no longer afraid of the darkness of others. They understand that emotions are not frightening when accompanied by safety. They understand that every experience has value when placed in the light of awareness. They understand that every pain is an invitation to a deeper layer of the soul. A space for transformation appears when you use your heart to listen, not your ears. When you use energy to understand, not logic. When you use presence to support, not words to control. Many people say they want to help others. But when others open their hearts, they rush to patch wounds, rush to give advice, rush to change the emotions of those they love. But helping is not fixing. Helping is allowing the other person to be themselves, giving them a place to put down their story, letting them feel the stability they cannot create at that moment. Becoming a space is also how you remind others that there is nothing wrong with feeling what they feel. Emotion is not the enemy. It is a signal. When you are not afraid of their emotions, they are less afraid of them too, and that is the first step of healing. There are moments when you do not need to say anything, just be there. Sit with them, breathe with them, place your presence next to them, and that presence alone is enough to hold them when they are drifting in deep emotion. Others do not remember the advice you gave, but they remember the feeling your presence created. They remember the safety when they were most fragile. They remember being seen when they felt invisible. They remember having someone beside them without demanding them to be strong. When you become a space for others, you become a point of intersection for healing. Not because you have special powers, but because you are calm enough not to disturb the healing power already within them, and something miraculous happens. When you become a space for the change of others, you are also changing. You become deeper, wider, calmer, brighter. You realize that communication is not a game of words. Communication is a meeting between souls finding their way back to themselves. When you become a space, you not only help others heal, you become someone life can trust with more relationships, more responsibilities, and more meaningful journeys. And that is the sign that you have stepped into a higher level of the art of communication, the level where you do not just convey, you complete. At the end of this journey, you realize a simple yet profound truth that communication has never been just words. It is the essence of connection between two souls. Everything you have walked through, from understanding energy, mastering silence, touching emotional rhythm, empathy, becoming a space, and adjusting the energetic field, all leads to one point. The point where you become a source of light for yourself. And when you become the light, you naturally illuminate those who stand near you. The deepest transformation does not happen when you speak correctly. It happens when you become correct. Correct with your essence. Correct with your stillness. Correct with your truth. Correct with the frequency life has always wanted you to touch. When you stand in this correctness, you do not need to strive for connection. Connection finds you. You do not need to try to influence. Influence radiates from you. Others feel your presence not only with their ears but with their hearts. They feel who you are, what you carry, whether you are living from clarity or running in the darkness of your own mind. And when you live from clarity, you become a grounding point for restless minds, a gentle breath for tired souls, a guide for hearts that have lost direction. The space you create is no longer only for others. It becomes a refuge for yourself, a place you can return to whenever life tilts, a place where you hear your inner voice again, a place where you rebuild peace when everything around you is too noisy. When you become a space for yourself, you no longer fear your own emotions. You no longer run from your inner darkness. You know that the strongest light is not the light out there. It is the light you ignite from within. Deep communication has never been a skill. It is a journey back to your essence. A journey that helps you see yourself more clearly through each encounter. A journey that opens doors only those who are quiet enough can enter. A journey that transforms you from someone seeking validation into someone offering peace. From someone wanting to be heard into someone others want to open their hearts to. You have walked through fear to reach truth, through chaos to reach stillness, through defense to reach empathy. And now you arrive at the final level presence, where you do not just communicate, you illuminate. Remember this. When you become light, you do not need to speak loudly. Light itself is already a voice. And your journey is only beginning. You have walked through a long path to touch the true depth of communication, not communication through words, but communication through essence. You have walked with me through layers few people ever reach, from how energy leads every connection, to the power of silence, to the art of empathy, the gentleness of truth, and the ability to become a space for the transformation of another. If you look back at this entire journey, you will realize that the most important thing is not technique. The most important thing is you. It is how you show up. It is the vibration you bring to the world. And it is the light you choose to ignite from within. Thank you for walking with me to the end of this story. Thank you for listening with your heart and giving time to nourish yourself. If this journey touched you, if it gave you a new perspective, or opened something within you, I invite you to help spread it to many more people. Please like the video so the algorithm knows this content has value. Please share it with those you feel need a gentle breeze for their soul. And do not forget to subscribe so you do not miss the next journeys we will walk together. Thank you for being here. See you again in the next stories.